Hello everybody, I am Ulrich with your Fix It Auto, and today we're going to be taking a look at my 1998 Toyota Celica, and we're going to be doing some brake upgrade along with some suspension and steering fixes as well. So we're going to be taking a look at underneath the car, and with this car safely jacked up, we can get to it. So a tip in order to make the job easy is to turn the wheel, so that way it gives you a lot more room to work with. Since I'm also going to be doing a brake upgrade, I'm going to be removing the brake caliper from the caliper brackets. And I'll be doing that by removing these two 14mm bolts. And I'll be using a bungee cord in order to move the brake caliper up and out of the way. And next I can toss the old brake pads, since these are getting upgraded anyways. And then I'm going to remove the two 17mm bolts that are holding in the caliper bracket. And now I can remove the bracket. I like to put the bolts back in the hole so that way I don't forget where they go. To remove the CV axle, I have to remove this cotter pin, and this cotter pin was actually giving me a lot of trouble, so I had to cut it because I'll be replacing it anyways. And then I use an electric impact wrench in order to make breaking loose this axle nut very easy. Toyota has made these threaded holes here, which in my experience it ends up stripping the threads before even hitting the rotor, so it doesn't look good. So I'm going to be hitting it out. Here I'm going to straighten out the wheel so that way I can see if I can knock out the hub using a slide hammer. Now, one of the most difficult parts of this job is going to be removing the hub from the spindle, and so there's a couple different ways that you could do it. The first method I'm going to try is using the slide hammer. And you can rent this from your local auto parts store. So what you need to get is the puller and then the slide hammer. And this is what the slide hammer looks like. And I'll show you just how to use it. So all you have to do is find the correct orientation on how to put this. Looks like the only way for me is to get it on just like that. And then you grab one of your lug nuts. Just screw it on, which will keep it in place. Then you grab your slide hammer and thread it in. And all you have to do is slide back and try to knock out the hub bearing. I ended up having no luck with this, so I'm going to show you another method which involves the steering knuckle out. So I'll show you that method, but in the meantime we're going to move on to the CV axle. In order to break the axle free, so one thing that we're going to do is we're going to thread the axle nut back on until it's flush. Then we could grab the hammer and just tap it up. Just like that. Okay, there's a cotter pin over here. And then with the cotter pin out, we can remove this using a 19mm socket. Now there's a couple different methods that I use in order to remove the tie rod. One of them is to put the castle nut on backwards and then hit it with a hammer. And the other method that I do is usually just hit the side of the steering knuckle and hope that it comes out. But this method tends to be pretty effective as well. And then I like to put the castle nut back on, so that way I don't lose its place. And next on this ball joint over here, as you can see, there's another cotter pin, so we just have to straighten this out. And then break loose and remove this with a 19mm ratcheting wrench. And from here I'm going to hit the side of the steering knuckle so that way I can break loose the ball joint. Next, with a 19mm wrench and a 19mm socket, I'm going to break loose and remove these strut bolts. And then with a few more hits of the lower ball joint, I'm able to actually fully remove the whole steering knuckle. And from here, to remove the lower ball joint, or I guess the only ball joint that we have here, two 17mm nuts and one 17mm bolt. You just have to go underneath it and unscrew it. And to give you a better look, we have a 17mm bolt right here. Okay. And then we remove the sway bar end link. Now most sway bar end links, they spin right over here, so you got to get something to hold on to it. And over here you can just unscrew it. So usually I grab some locking pliers, get them to stay in place. And that's everything that I'm going to be removing from the suspension. The CV axles are back ordered for a manual transmission, so I'm going to have to wait for that. And then the inner tie rod is going to be on a later video because that is also on back order. So I'll be doing a separate video for those. And same thing with the strut assembly. I'm actually going to be replacing that with coilovers. So there's going to be a separate video for that. And then of course I'm going to be doing a brake upgrade. But in the meantime, this is all I'm going to be doing here. So let's move on to the spindle and disassemble that. The second method that I'm going to be using in order to remove the hub is, as you can see, I'm grabbing a 1-inch socket and I'm just going to be putting it on that inner part, which is actually the hub itself. So I'm going to be placing the socket here and I'm going to be hitting it there. Now I'm going to be using an impact socket, and the reason why is going to be because these are made to withstand abuse. So this is the guy that I'm going to use. But before I start hitting that out, I'm actually going to remove this wheel seal and the snap ring as well. So they make these special snap ring pliers, so that way you could get it to pinch in. But you have to be careful because this thing can fly out. I'm just going to get my flathead screwdriver in there. And be careful because this thing will fly out. Now I'm just going to be hammering this thing out, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, this did take me a while. Now there are better hammers to use than this one, but this is the only one that I had in my disposal. This did take me roughly about 30 minutes in order to hammer out. But it is possible to do it this way, and it is cheaper, because your other option is to also take it to a machine shop and they should be able to press it out. But with time I was able to knock out that hub. I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver, go around, pop off the seal. I'm going to put the race bearing back in. Now for some reason no auto parts store near me had a bearing press tool, so that way we could just place it on here and see if we can press it out or even hammer it out. So most places had a ball joint press set, and what I did with the other side was I grabbed two of the smaller pieces here, grab that, and then just hammered away. Same rule applies over here, you just have to be patient. This also took me roughly about 30 minutes to hammer it out, but it was possible. And all it took was a hammer and a loaner tool, which I got at my local auto parts store. And then the last thing on the spindle is going to be the dust shield, which can be removed by taking out these 4 T-bits here. So I'm going to be using a T30. It also helps to soak these in penetrating fluid before you go at them. Now if you're unlucky, just like me, you come across a bolt that is actually completely stripped. You cannot get a good grip on it and it just infinitely spins. So in that case, you could always try, putting in a bigger torx bit, but unfortunately the next step up is very large size. So the next option is just to cut this and make it into a flathead bolt, which you can do with a handsaw, or if you have a Dremel, then it'll just make the job that much easier. It's also a good idea to soak these in penetrating fluid before you even try, so that way it makes it easier to take out. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make it into a flathead by getting this diamond bit on this Dremel and then just going through and cutting it so that way it makes a flathead. And next, grab some penetrating fluid, just soak that, and then just let it soak into the thread so that way it'll be easier. Don't just try to take it out right away. So I let it soak for roughly about half an hour, so let's see how easy this comes out now. Still not that easy. And this does happen over time when the bolts become so rust welded. A lot of the times that does work, so if that doesn't work, then you just have to grind it all the way down using some sort of grinder, and then whatever method that you use, just take off the dust shield. There's your spindle. And that's all I'm disassembling for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, then be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. And be sure to ring that bell notification so that way you're notified whenever I come out with the next video. And as always, please let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching.